I think everyone has it. Everyone has that voice inside it, like intuition, like a deep knowing, and I think we have that daily. Daily, you have this voice that's sort of like whispering something to you, and then you don't listen, and then it starts saying something a little louder. You still don't listen, and then it starts like banging on the door, and you still don't listen, and then it has to like throw bricks at you until you do listen. And by that, I mean I'm speaking metaphorically, but what it is like, and again, maybe this is a little bit like people wouldn't like to hear this, but a lot of like disease and illness, in my belief and in my experience in life, has to do with life trying to wake you up, because you haven't been listening. Um, so it's sort of like a wake up call.
My name is Dylan Birch. Over the past 4 years, I've been traveling Canada via train, plane, and even hitchhike, working anywhere from McDonald's to lighting films. What I found sparks my curiosity is how much we can learn from a meaningful conversation. When we engage with curiosity, it helps us better connect with ourselves and with others. Deeper connection raises levels of dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins, and other well-being biochemicals in our brain. We can create positive benefits for our body and our mind. This makes conversation part of the cure. This is the Curiosity Curve. So I guess the first thing, welcome, by the way, Puja. This is going to be number one, the very first episode. And I guess we'll just kind of start. I'll let you introduce yourself and then I'll kind of explain my story of how we know each other.
Okay. So how do we know how to introduce myself? My name's Puja. I live in Ottawa, and I am an actor. And yeah, I feel like that I don't really know what else to say about myself other than what I currently do. Well, not currently do because of quarantine, but
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I don't really have a spiffy, well thought out intro for myself.
That's okay. Well, maybe rather than just a title, who do you feel you are? Who is Puja?
um, Puja is like a fun, cheery, usually cheery kind of person who likes to dance and do childish things like eat cotton candy and baking.
That's super funny. Okay, I'm actually gonna tie that in quick because everything you just said, I actually remember um, how Pooja and I know each other is when I lived in Ottawa. I'm currently in Vancouver. Um, Pooja and I'd actually reached out on Facebook, I believe it was, just to try and collaborate with other people on this idea I had about having conversations with more meaning with people. And at that time, I think it was currently about strangers in specific. And we had met with a few people and had this idea and recorded a little bit of this one conversation that I had with Pooja. And we kind of had the same question come up, and dancing was one of the things I remember specifically, but I didn't actually remember until you said the things. But cotton candy and baking were two of the specific things you said that I remember because I was just like, oh, cotton candy. Like, it's a random, like, sweet that just, like, popped in her mind that's, like, something very unique to you, but at the same time, you wouldn't think of someone, like, in my own mind, at least, to just automatically pop up cotton candy. So I instantly like remember that when you said it. One of the other things, though, I guess I would like to know a little more about is we talked a little bit about an ashram trip that you took, and I want to kind of know what point were you at in your life, and then like, was this at the point of acting? Was this before or after? And what did you come out of that experience? What was it like? And what do you feel you came out after with? Like, difference, I guess.
Yeah. So I went there in 2011, but well, actually 2012, before I went, so I used to work as a associate producer for CTV here in Ottawa, and for this political show. And then I wanted to. I just kind of sort of had enough. I didn't feel like, this is what my life was meant to be. Just 9 to 5 sort of typical job, and go go go, always checking your phone and having to just be in the know all the time about the news. And so I decided just that I was going to go overseas and do some volunteering. And so I quit, and then within 2 weeks found decided that I was going to go to Cambodia, and literally just got my stuff, and just got myself sorted out and figured I was going to go to Cambodia. Got a one-way ticket and was going to go volunteer there for 4 weeks. I ended up staying there longer. I think it was 6 weeks that I ended up staying there, and I loved every minute of it. I was volunteering with children, teaching them acting. Nonetheless, we ended up putting on this play and stuff, and then from there I didn't have a ticket back home. My idea was my plan was to do Cambodia, and then maybe a few other places close by, and then eventually end up in India, and then come back, maybe 6 months, a year tops. And um it was differently, it was just different. My plans kind of went out the window. I extended my stay in Cambodia, met a friend, and we traveled Cambodia together and other places. And I did a lot of places in Southeast Asia. And then, yeah. And then eventually, when I got to India, it was 2012. It was already 6 months in, and I had no plans of wanting to go back to Ottawa and my life there. So I got to India and decided, like, okay, I'm going to go, because I wanted to go to different ashrams, to sort of, just lifelong questions about life and the unknown, and what is it all about? What's going on here? And so I wanted to go to different ashrams. I wanted to go to one and then another one, and, see the country as well. But I think I was in India for about just a couple of weeks, and I had scrolled down the name of this one particular ashram, from this. I found it when I was still living in Ottawa. This When the movie Eat, Pray, Love came out. I don't know if you know that movie with Julia Roberts.
I haven't seen it, but I know what you're talking about.
A
Yeah.
good movie. That movie came out, and everyone went crazy about, because she ends up going to an ashram. So it was a big fad, like ashrams, whatever. And so this one Canadian woman wrote this article, Toronto Star newspaper article, blog type thing, and I had seen it. So I jotted down a note of this ashram. So I get to India and I open up this notebook that I've been jotting notes down while I've been traveling. And I was like, oh, this ashram, like, let me just call them up, because I was in New Delhi and I was about to just start traveling around India. And I called them, and it was very strange. It was just felt like a call to, I just have to go there. It was kind of out of my way, out of my budget, but there was like a strong voice inside that was like, just go. So I ended up there, and it was in 2000, July, I think, 2012. I entered in the gates and instantly felt like I was home. And then, yeah, and then I was planning to stay there just a couple of weeks, and then that just turned into 4 years.
Whoa. That sounds like such a journey, first of all. Um, and then just to kind of tail end the end of the original question was, what do you feel from the beginning of that journey when you spontaneously decided to kind of get everything together, quit your job, and start going to the first ashram? What do you feel you gained, um, maybe just as an individual, when you came back and when you got back to Ottawa and started readjusting to everything again, to normal life, quote unquote, as we call it or called it?
Yeah. Um, I think just being aware that you are not your aware. And I had, stuff happens when you're meditating like 2 times a day for hours, and living in that kind of atmosphere where everyone is sort of like on their own inner journey. Things happen, and I changed, and it wasn't so much me noticing I changed, but other people noticed. People, my family, friends noticed that I had changed, and it wasn't until they said it that I was like, oh, okay, maybe I have. Um, and I think one of the things now, after I've been now in Ottawa 4 years since I left the ashram, and I think it's just sort of the realization I had there that you're actually not your mind, you're not your body, you're not what you think you are. Your pure consciousness, everyone is in their pure true essence is a consciousness, which is awareness, which is really nothingness. So, and that you can be aware of your thoughts, and you can actually stay in the present moment. And when you're in the present moment, there is no you cease to exist. There's no past, there's no future. There's like a nothingness, but in that nothingness is like everythingness. So I think for me, what I gained was, I actually didn't gain. I lost something, which is good. I lost the limitations of who I thought I was. Yeah.
I like that. And it's again, I remember you saying some of these things the last time we chatted, and um I remember the feeling too. Then I actually kind of feel it now, and I don't know specifically what it is, and I don't know if it was an energy that I kind of got from you explaining it in that way, and maybe in just a way that I don't always hear. You know, people talk about consciousness, and I definitely have explored, like the separation of our thoughts and our emotions, and seeing them as not who we are, but that we can separate and not have to attach ourselves to those things, which is really a beautiful thought at the end of the day. But the second thing that I kind of thought that feeling could definitely be is also fear, because it's so, and I imagine for a lot of people, whether a lot of people hear this or not, that feeling of fear is definitely probably presented. At least for myself, I know that it is a little different and not used to how we're hearing about things, right? About how to deal with emotions or talk about them, or but what I found in the limited time that I've been able to kind of catch myself in those moments, and I think that's been like the first baby step, is just kind of for me being able to kind of catch yourself kind of caught up in an emotion or like a silly thought that kind of you start ramping up the story and creating, a more negative or more whatever emotion you're kind of feeling, kind of to ramp it up. And how I have been led to believe, kind of let your mind believe that, basically reaffirm yourself in your mind of these things and keep building it up and up. Um, but yeah, I think there is maybe just a little bit of a feeling of mixture of both, like fear, but also that little bit of kind of bliss was another word, like blissful energy of just that idea alone.
And do you mean like fear of like, do you feel fear when you like hear of like life described this way, or what do you mean by?
Um, I think when I say fear, I mean it more of like, um, and I don't think it's like a big feeling of fear, but just that sensation in your gut, but more of the idea of it kind of questions our everyday norm of thinking sometimes, just like our flow kind of, in a way, just like caught me off guard of, in a way, of my own beliefs for a second. And I don't, it's also something I had heard before, so I guess maybe my attention was caught because I had definitely heard that type of information before. But I think um, the way you presented it, but just on not even really the level, because I believe you were kind of explaining it on a pretty basic term of what it is. Obviously it's not a simple thing to do. I can imagine. Like I said, I only take baby steps on this myself, but um, yeah, it's kind
And
of
where did you hear this stuff? Or when I say
hard.
stuff, like, where did you ever hear of like?
The first place, mindfulness books, I would say. Um, I have one on my shelf right now called Wherever You Go, There You Are. And yeah, I really, really like that book. I got it from a thrift shop in Tofino, actually. I'd heard about it from a friend, and I had randomly found it, and some of the pages were a little water, just a tiny bit waterlogged because it had been outside over a shelter. She gave it to me for like $2, and I finally read it. There's another one called Understanding Your Mind, by, I'm gonna butcher this name, but Thich Nhat Hanh. Yeah, yeah.
I have a hard time saying his name too, but yeah.
Yeah, so, I started that one as well, and some of those things, and then just, a lot of, YouTube videos, like some people really, not even talk about it on that level, but have kinda helped me explore it and further curiosity, um, and kinda, like, go down the rabbit hole is kinda how we would say it, I guess, but for me, I find it very easy to do that. Once I find interest in something, I think, I mean, I imagine a lot of us do it that way, but yeah, when I find interest or get curious about something, it's just like zoom, like right down, and yeah, everything. But I don't know. I think that's also where we can generate focus. But there was one specific thing that just popped into my mind that I think can kind of go off of what we're talking about, and that was when you were talking about this specific ashram that you had heard of, from the blog, and you heard this voice, and it was like this calling. And would you, what would you call that, or how would you express what you felt that that calling was, if you kind of could? I know it's
I think everyone has it. Everyone has that voice inside it, like intuition, like a deep knowing, and I think we have that daily. Daily you have this voice that's sort of like whispering something to you, and then you don't listen, and then it starts saying something a little louder, you still don't listen, and then it starts like banging on the door and you still don't listen, and then it has to like throw bricks at you until you do listen. And by that I mean, I'm speaking metaphorically, but what it is like, and again, maybe this is a little bit like people wouldn't like to hear this, but a lot of like disease and illness, in my belief and in my experience in life, has to do with life trying to wake you up, because you haven't been listening. Um, so it's sort of like a wake up call. I don't know if you've heard of this author, Anita Moorjani, who had terminal cancer, stage 4 cancer, and when she was dying, basically, she had a near death experience. So she left her body and um, saw everything. And there was no way. Every doctor, they sent her reports like all over the world to all the top surgeons there, and they said there's just no way that someone with this stage of a cancer could ever come back, and has ever survived. She survived, and the cancer cleared within weeks. And she knew when she was on the other side, we'll call it the other side, other dimension or whatever, that she got cancer because she lived her life in fear. Always trying to please people and doing what other people wanted her to do, and not really listening to what she wanted to do. And so, when I went there and I felt like, wow, I'm home, I had that strong feeling. And then right away, the mind's like, oh, no, 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 but you've got a plan. You've got your lonely planet. You're going to go to all these places. You have to do this, and you can't just stay in one place. And half your stuff's in Delhi. So you're going to do this. You're going to stay here for like a week and a half. And your mind's like, boo, 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 and then it's just sort of like letting go to the idea that what's best for your life. A lot of the times I think, especially during this time in quarantine, I feel like it's kind of been a wake up call for people, because we like plan, and we know, and like this is how my life is going to be. And then life is like, not really. This is what's going to happen. You're going to sit inside and do nothing, you know,
yeah,
um, because life just, it has other plans. It's like, what's that saying? Like, um, life happens when you're busy making plans, or something like that. I feel like I'm saying it wrong, but
probably. Either way, I think your point, yes, is definitely across.
yeah, and I think this is a hard time for people, um, in many ways, in different aspects. But one of them, is it's a clear thing that you can make plans all you want, but life will have other plans, and sometimes you just kind of have to listen to that voice. And I think it speaks to us all the time. And I mean, it's not always easy in the world and the system that we have created, that we live in, because those voices are so strong, and influences and energies around you are so strong that it's hard to quiet out those voices and know what is right for you, which may be completely wrong for someone else and may look
Mhm.
on the outside surface it's very wrong. I was working at CTV making a good living, and I would have climbed up the ladder and would have gone places. And I was, elbow rubbing with political people and like literally, and it was a great job, and people would have killed for that job. But there was like that tiny little voice and that little energy feeling it just wasn't good. And it was just, I knew it wasn't for me. And had I, if I didn't listen to it, I think I'm not sure what my state would be in right now if I hadn't, maybe I would be, riddled with anxiety every day and be taking medication for that. And, and have bone problems and aches and pains and stuff like that. And, sometimes I do, again, this is my belief and probably very controversial to people, but, there's real illnesses and such. But, sometimes when things come on, when you're like, that just doesn't like, oh my God, my shoulder for the last year has been hurting. And I don't know. Sometimes I think we need to look at not just the physical aspect of it, but it's like, what else is going on in your life? Like, are there other
Yeah.
blockages where, is something that you're not listening to? Are you living really your true, authentic life? Because I just know with me, when I'm really, really full of joy and bliss, like my body's like buzzing and there's no ill health at all. There's just no
Yeah.
space for it. But when I get really down and whatever, it's like, oh, you tend to get sick more. Oh, this hurts. And, it's just so,
Absolutely. And not that people with, actual conditions going on, it's not that you're saying that these conditions are like that because of this, but like once you've had that happening over and over and over again, it can lead. Um,
mm,
yeah, I'm just kind of taking, I as well believe, um, in line with what you're saying. And yeah, I don't think that's not like I know my mom has fibromyalgia, and, it's not that those things are a direct onset of that. It's that, the longer those things pile up and drag on, and especially, like, when we don't deal with things,
mm,
in our own mind or in our own life that are going on that, they'll lead up. I had shingles when I was 21 years old, and I found out, like 50, 60-year-old men are getting that, not 21-year-old men. And yeah, it really made me reevaluate things, and I knew at that point that was something that was staying around for life. Like that, yeah, like the flare ups and the physical like pain and everything of the shingles will be gone. But in the end, like that's something that can come back any day it wants. If my
mhm,
immune system gets low enough, if my stress levels get high enough, is what I got told. So, to me, I kind of flip the switch and I use it as my little stressmometer is what I call it. And
mhm,
I can kind of feel a little like jolt of pain when I'm stressing out, or, like my emotions get out of whack, or my immune system starts to get low, and I try and use that as a little awareness to kind
mhm,
of, hey, you need to kind of drop drop that gauge down, or you need to kind of swing it in the other direction, whatever it may be. But yeah,
mhm,
it's those things that are there, like you were saying, to, I believe, show us something. And I remember at the worst of it, I was like puking and like really, really sick in the bathroom, at one point. And I just remember I had this moment where I had a friend who had passed away in high school. We had these bracelets that were like his bracelets that were made up for him, and it said "I believe" on it. That was, in his obituary. There's a poem called "I Believe" that he had made in high school. He was just in high school when he passed. He's 16, 17, and I remember looking at that bracelet, and I actually took it off, and I don't. My mind was out of it, but I don't know why I took that thing off. But I just remember thinking, um, like, I don't want you to see this, like it doesn't make any sense. But I was
mhm,
just like, I don't want you to see this right now. And but then I remember, like in that moment, I remember thinking like, this is the worst I've ever felt. This is the most pain I've ever been through. But I was hanging around the toilet and I just thought to myself, like, there's gonna be another side to this. I looked over at that bracelet, and that bracelet was a symbol that there wasn't a physical, like, another side for my friend. He will always live on through how I present myself and how I hold his piece of character within me.
Yeah.
But I knew in that moment, like, I wasn't gonna die. Like, that's where it clicked to me, like, this isn't gonna kill me right now.
Yeah.
That, like, I'm hanging around this toilet feeling like absolute trash. But a couple days from now, a week from now, I'm be okay,
Mhm.
you know? And that was like a really, really humbling feeling because it made me realize that like I was going through that pain, but that pain wasn't something that would last forever. And that mental thought alone and just that little perspective shift helped me go through the pain a little better, you know? Not that it didn't
Yeah.
hurt, not that, but the way I looked at the pain changed how I went through the
That
pain.
it'll pass, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's like a lot of things, like just to remember, like this too shall pass.
yeah,
And it just to know that, yeah, after a couple of days, after a week, most things, you're not gonna die from, even the worst of the worst that happens. Usually you're like so stressed about it and like, oh my God, I just totally messed up and or whatever it may be, you end up not, dying from it. And then if you do, well
yeah,
then it was your time to go.
yeah.
And that's okay
No,
too. But then that's just like
yeah, and not even into like in a way related to now, it's this is all real and stuff, but we take a look at how when you were saying earlier about how life has kind of been stopped, like we're used to going so fast and everything's at a stop, and like now it's kind of the question. I wanted to tie this in because you talk like we've been talking about how um the way we kind of live and our mindfulness and everything could be very well leading into um, you know, some of our illnesses and the way our physical kind of health is affected by what's
yeah.
going on inside. And so, my question to you, when you kind of talk about that call and that voice of the intuition from these illnesses and them being a certain call, looking deeper and on a bigger spectrum with what we're going through right now, what in just like in your belief, obviously neither of us are scientists or anything, but what is the call? Like what is this? What do you believe like this stoppage, this halt
Oh,
of our regular life is here to show us? Like
it's probably
what's the
very
call?
controversial.
Yeah,
I don't
totally. And it's
know.
not here. This is just like open conversation. This isn't fact or fiction.
On
It's
those
just
people, as long as you promise Dylan, no one's gonna like come after me with like, we want to kill her.
should
Um,
we even okay, first of all, should we
no, I mean, I
even
don't think it's that. I know, like I've talked to my friends about it, and I
I
think
just
it's
think talking on the perspective, if we're looking at it at this angle, then if we were taking this angle at a current event, what would your perspective be on just a different
on
angle?
what's going on right now.
Not say there was a situation, not what's going on right now. Let's say there was a situation where everything came to a halt, and we were for some reason to be held inside in all of our houses and couldn't come
Well,
out for a while. What would you feel that maybe a calling like that would be?
I think okay. So I mean, we can. Again, I say it's controversial only because I know that there's so many. There's such a polarity when it comes to like what's happening with this quarantine. Some people feel
Yeah.
like it's a hoax and it's like
And we'll
overblown.
only take a couple minutes. This isn't, yeah, we won't go into depth in this, but
Yeah,
you
and
know,
I just think that right now, like I mean, with everything stopping, it's just like the earth needs to heal. I mean, there's been so many facts that, or even science has said that the earth, like certain ozone layers are healing. And I think it's really just earth being like, well, you've done enough beating me up and hurting me. So, I need to heal. So I know we see it on a human level, like all these people are dying and it's terrible, people are getting infected and dying and stuff like that. But there's a greater intelligence there that knows what it's doing, and I think the earth just needs a break. I mean, and animals, I mean, they say that more animals have come out, and um the animals get louder. There's, especially birds, they get louder when there's no sound around, no human sound.
Yeah.
So with less sound, the birds are probably singing louder, and
Oh
you
my
know.
goodness, Puja, the birds out here, they're already nice out in Vancouver, but out here right now, you wake up in the morning, and I've been waking up, around 7 o'clock Pacific time here, and going out for a walk down to the park, and I could even have a call with someone, and they can hear the birds just going. Absolutely, and another point is water. Like water is clearing up in places. You see the
Yeah,
canals, over in what was it, Paris? I think I saw that
yeah,
they're like
right.
clearing completely up. Like, you take a look to take a step back and not even talk about the virus itself, but just how we've impacted this
Hmm.
beautiful place we live on, and for what gain? Like, yeah, we're going through this right now, but maybe that's kind of what we need to kind of look at. Hey, like, yeah, this is going on, but what happens in 10 years if we were to keep polluting and keep doing all the nasty things to this planet that we're doing?
Hmm.
And like what's going to happen to us from that? And maybe this is a reflection of that. Who knows? I don't. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's not good. And I think at this point in 2020, most of us understand that. So maybe that's a good point to kind of start winding down, maybe towards the ending in our little outro. We're going to take 5 minutes here at the end and kind of go over a couple things. But um, is there anything, maybe going off of everything we said, you feel might have been left out, or any maybe questions you feel you didn't get to ask on your end?
um Nothing that comes up immediately. Yeah, I can't really think of anything right now. um yeah, no.
Cool. The one thing I think, want to just explore in a couple minutes before we go is kind of had a time to, at the beginning, I asked you who Pooja was when you told me what you did you're an actress, and you worked for CTV, and I think we've had the time to explore a little bit about who you are, but I want to take a step back to, again, before you took this journey and the point you were at when you kind of decided to quit and all this. Who was Pooja then? If that's not too much, to ask.
Yeah, no, I think Puja then was very much uh lost. um Lost, confused, just always had a longing to know something else and know what life was about. um and just not happy, not knowing that what I was doing was not what I was meant to be doing. It didn't seem to have any sort of meaning. It was just like, okay, you get a job, and then I mean, a lot of, like, even throughout my life, even as a kid, I was sort of question stuff, and no one was ever able to give me like satisfying answers to my questions about, existential stuff, even when I was really young. And I had questions when I was, yeah, very, very young. Um, and so I think it was just like a matter, like, it just kept building up. And so while I was working this, great job on the outside, looked wonderful to everyone. Um, it just, I just started questioning again that, is this it? Like, you just go to school, and then you go to college, university, and then you get a job, and then you make money so that you can buy stuff, and then you make more money so you can buy more stuff. And like, it just didn't, I didn't know. For me, it just didn't, something just didn't feel right. And I was like, this can't be
Yeah,
it. Like, this can't be why the earth was created. Like, whatever this intelligence is, whether there is no God, or there is, or whatever it is, whatever's going on, does not seem like it's just based on getting a 9 to 5 job. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't
yeah,
feel like it could be that bland. You know what I mean? Like you have like all these amazing creatures, yet human existence is about getting a job and sitting in an office. Like that something doesn't make sense, like that can't be it.
Yeah. So what point I'm really curious as to what there was obviously a line, there was where you kind of wanted to take it. And I think inside, you're kind of explaining that you did know to a certain extent that's what you wanted to do. It was just maybe on some level fear, doubt, confidence, opinions of others. But what did it take for you to just take that step over the line? Because most of the time, I mean, as big of the steps as they are, I feel like, you made a pretty giant step. But what I feel, at least in my own personal experience, is that when we get over that line, you realize you didn't have to jump as high to get over it as you might have thought you had to. Does that make sense? So, yeah, like by the time you get over, like you look at it as this huge, maybe let's say like a wall stopping you from getting those things. And that wall might be, bricks layered with doubt, like I said, opinions from others, your own fears, like just not having enough confidence, self confidence, whatever physical or mental, you know, obstacles might be in your way. Those are all the bricks that layer this wall that we don't think we can get over, which in turn is really just the wall of our limiting beliefs. But once we get over that wall that seemed so, high and strong, or sometimes going through the wall, you realize it was kind of just a line painted on the floor that all you had to do was kind of take a step over. Not that it was as easy as crossing a line, but you realize that that's all you really had to do to make the leap to do it.
um well, that's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah, I mean, I think at the time when I was, deciding what I wanted to do, or just I felt just terrible most of the time. I remember leaving work, like I would leave work driving home and just be crying, but for no reason. So I didn't really understand what was going on. And I just knew that, like, very deep down, I was just not happy at all. But I didn't know what the step was. I didn't know what I needed to do, and I didn't know how to get out of it. And very funny. I actually wanted to press pause and stop on everything and just give up the life I was living. Um, and so I had always kind of dreamed about volunteering and going to live somewhere else and just doing that for a while. And so when I did eventually, at the time, it seemed huge, like, oh my God, you're going to quit. Like, what? Just out of the blue. And
Yeah.
it was just frustration. Like, frustration built up so much that frustration and suffocation. So, when like someone's like suffocating you, I don't like, not that
Not physically, yeah, but like I know what you mean, but even you mean it
that,
on a metaphorical level, though,
yeah, you
what we're
just feel like
speaking of,
there's
right?
suffocating. It's almost like to tap out. If you're getting in a fight and someone's like going to hold you, and then when you really cannot take anymore, you're going to tap out.
Yeah.
It was like that. It was like getting there, getting there, and then I felt like
So
I was
you couldn't breathe.
so suffocated that I was like, no, 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 I need to quit like today. And I literally gave my notice and was like, I'm leaving. Like, I
Boom.
cannot wait. I don't even think I waited the full 2 weeks. Like, I couldn't breathe. I knew that if I didn't leave right then, that I was going to jump out a window. Like, it was so at the end. And it sounds very dramatic, but it was really, it felt just was like it just felt huge at the time. Um, and taking that step at the and it wasn't until people told me after, like, wow, that's so brave that you did that. And it didn't feel like a brave thing for me. It felt like a necessity. It feels like, well,
Yeah.
I had to. I didn't feel like I had a choice. It wasn't
Yeah.
something I decided, like, should I do this and should I not, and humming and hawing about it. It was just like circumstances, and then what was going on inside of me, what was bubbling inside of me. It was like I was going to explode, literally, almost. And so to cross that line and to be like, I'm going to quit and just go to Cambodia, um it was just, yeah, it kind of, I had to do it. I don't know if that answered your question, but
Yeah, yeah. So the way I look at that is how I imagine that was, I thought of. the wall, the brick wall we were talking about, um, but the side that you're on is on fire, and you know that it's either you stay in the fire and you're done, or you're finding a way over that wall. So then, I guess just to quickly, the last little thing would be when you got on the other side of that wall. That doesn't have to be getting back home. We've briefly talked about that, but maybe even when you got there and just got the leap, you got on that plane and took your first step over there, or got to the first ashram, whatever it might have been that defining moment for you. If and when you can kind of reflect on looking back at that wall that you just crossed, did it ever feel like that wall might have looked a little bigger, or that you conquered a giant wall, or did it really seem like it might have been easier than you really put the stress or fear upon yourself?
Um, well, that's the thing about looking back, because when you look back, I'm looking at it from this perspective, but when I was there, I was a different person. So at that time, it did feel like a really big wall.
Mhm.
Now, let's say like now at this moment in 2 months from now, I'm starting to feel like an inkling and a pushing to do something different, or I feel like I'm not living my authentic life, it wouldn't even get to that level.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, more so when you hopped over that wall, did you have a moment where you looked back right after? Not even more so afterwards, like once you got over the wall, or let's say even fence, once you hopped the fence, did you look back at the fence at all to see it, how big the fence actually looked from that side? You know what I mean? I guess in real terms, without using the metaphor, would be, did you have the chance to reflect almost like right after jumping over that line, to really, yeah.
To be honest, I don't think I didn't have time to reflect. It would happen really quick. Um I just felt a sense of, it's kind of like you escape, like you said, the burning house, right? Like, so you're in the
Mhm.
house and there's a wall, right? And you either stay and get burnt, or you get out. As soon as you get out and you're running, you don't really look back. You feel, I felt so free, and it was like
You
like I
just
could
don't
breathe.
feel the fire, is what you're saying, basically. Yeah, in that moment, it's not like you're feeling anything else. It's just,
I just felt freedom. Like I didn't look back at my decision to leave. I was just so glad I
yeah,
left. Like it
that was
felt really, I was like, oh my God, I was in a prison. Thank God I got
yeah,
out. What felt
yeah.
to me like was a prison. And I just felt glad that I got out. So as soon as I was, on that plane to Cambodia, like I couldn't even believe it. Like, wow, I did it. I
Mhm.
I can't believe I just quit this amazing job and I'm here and I'm not, going back. Um, but I didn't at that time didn't really reflect on that situation, of quitting and whatnot, until I encountered people back in my home life, like coming back. I came back to Ottawa to visit for like 2 months. And at that point, when people said, like, wow, that's really brave, you just have social gatherings and people talk and like,
Yeah,
that's so brave of you that you just left. And for me, it was then that I looked at it and was like, what was that brave, or what was that moment like for me? I didn't really, because it felt like such trauma, like, burning house, and like I have to get out, and
yeah,
then I
yeah.
got out and I could breathe and I just felt freedom and so glad that I was out of there.
Awesome. Yeah. No, no, definitely. I was kind of hoping that was the word you were looking for to describe that, was freedom. That's kind of the word that popped into my head of what I thought. Like I don't know, just when you were explaining yourself before you got to freedom, like what was going into my head was freedom, and when you did, I was like, yeah, yeah, that's what I relate with to that feeling for sure. Is the feeling, not that it is or isn't that, but that's what I feel.
I remember people telling me, like, when they said, oh, that was brave, and like, weren't you afraid and stuff. And it's funny because at that time you don't, because it's like, well, the choice is either back into that burning house or go this way, which is so unknown. Like the path that I was going on was completely unknown. No one I
Yeah.
know just takes a one-way ticket to Cambodia. Like I don't know anyone who had done that. So
Yeah.
when I, and then that was, I think now when I look back at it, it was like that was the moment, my journey of trusting life took over instead of trusting Puja and what Puja knows and what people around her and the voices tell her about what is
Yeah.
right, what's wrong. Instead of listening to that, I started listening more to life, and everything
Yeah.
just kind of fell into place. It was so serendipitous. I know you said that you experienced that with your travels too, right? When you just kind of
Yeah.
give up planning and organizing and figuring it all out, and then life is like, really, you think you have it all planned out? Well, I'm going to throw you this thing at you, you know.
Yeah.
And
And it wasn't it's funny because I did experience that, and I believe that when I was traveling. But it wasn't until I had already been, like went and worked in different places in Canada, but and went on the train, crossed the country on the train a bunch of times, been out east, but it wasn't until I hitchhiked from Vancouver. I hitchhiked Vancouver Island with a stranger I met on the train, and we'd actually hitchhiked from Vancouver back to Ontario, and that was kind of the defining moment. Um, and something I don't talk about much, but I guess here's where I'm gonna kind of talk about it now. But I'd actually got in a car crash. I fell asleep at the wheel about a week before I left for that trip I had planned, and I had a job. It was my mom's car, and it bent completely in half. I flipped 3 times in the air, and I ended up in the ditch on the other side of the road. And yeah, it was the scariest thing that's ever happened in my life. Um, biggest Before I took that train ride to go out there and met friends on the train who I ended up hitchhiking with one of them out to Vancouver Island, around the island, and then back across the country. So I was supposed to take a job out there and I didn't take the job. I was like, I'd done this before. And after that experience, like I honestly felt like I should have died. Like, there's no way. When I saw the car, like, there's no way, and I just came out with a scratch on my head that went away in 2 days, or, like, 3, 4 days, like, it wasn't even visible, nothing. So, like, it was definitely, like, one of the most, like, biggest blessings in my life, but it was kinda how I took it was, like, there's no way that should have happened, but, like, I have something to do here. If something that serious can happen to me and I just walked away from it, and I have my legs, I have my arms. I have full functionability of my physical body and my brain. Like, I saw that as like you.
after what it was that you were meant to do, or you just knew that you had to be here? And
Mm. I just
why do you feel like you had to go through a car crash in order to, were you like, why did I have to go to, like, I know I need to be alive, but why do I need to go through a car crash? And like, what was it about the car crash that woke you up?
because I guess where I kind of began with this, where I thought what I was doing was it. I thought going and working in these places and experiencing this, having great conversation, meeting great people, and actually having genuine conversation, for once I felt like that I could connect with people on a deeper level that could actually want to have those conversations. Um, and I thought I was doing that, and I also was slacking off a lot, procrastinating a lot. I wanted to do these things. I wanted to get better at photography. I wanted to do more in videography. And I I just wasn't, like I wanted to. I wasn't investing in myself. I wasn't, changing up the way I was doing things. I was just about to go on another trip out to Jasper where I first started things in the first place and go do the same thing I already did. And and then I just felt like everything, and I had been home for longer than I normally was before I go out and travel. And yeah, I think it was life just kind of being like, hey man, like you forgot the bigger picture. And like this is kind of a warning, you
What do
know?
you think the bigger picture is?
Um, Impact. And I think I don't fully know what my impact on this world is yet, but I feel like when you talk about that calling and that intuition, first thing that pops into my mind is Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. And when we think about the hero's journey, I think about when you talk about the call, I instantly think of the call to adventure and how we begin this journey. You think of any great movie like Star Wars, and like Luke Skywalker gets called off to the journey of his lifetime, and but that is like our call for impact and like where we can actually make impact in this world and make a difference while we're here, and hopefully. lasting in those people past the time we are here physically. Um, and when I look at my friends, I've had a few friends who've passed away at a young age, and how I came to kind of philosophize that in my own head at that age was that they can live on as long as I take the characteristics that I most enjoyed about them and that made them who they were, and to like, I remember specifically sitting in these funeral homes with all these people and thinking of all the like the large number amount of people in these small towns. My town was 7,500. There's probably over like hundreds and hundreds of people in these. And it just made me think like this is how many people this one person impacted in a small town, and like that, like each and every one of us is going to carry you with us as long as we live, whether we know it or not. Luckily, like for myself, I believe that like I consciously carry that with myself for my two buddies, especially, but yeah, it's to answer your question, like it comes down to the same one word, but impact. I think we're all here to do it and do it in different ways. And when you talk about that call and it getting to the point where the fire is literally burning and you can only either sit there and burn or jump over is, where it's like, hey, man, like just do it, And that's for me, why I felt like on the other side, it's just a line because it's not as hard as we think it is, like it came
Yeah.
down to me. Like my big jump lately was coming out to Vancouver and getting a job in film with absolutely no experience. And it was
Right.
because I knew one guy from at one point in my journey who, at that random moment in time, had a room available in his house and could connect me with possibly maybe a day in film. And I jumped and I did it.
Mm.
And because I had jumped all those times with the hitchhiking, going to these other jobs, it was just me walking over a line again. But it was, a new thing. I'd never been out here. The film industry, what? Like, I would love to do that, but like, I don't have any experience to back me up. I get out here and I had to work within 4 hours.
Mm.
And the next day, I got work for the next week and for the next 3 weeks. And then at the end of that 3 weeks, I got asked by another department. I moved up departments into lighting, and it's like these things
I think in those
when
moments too, you kind of like let go of your Dylan's idea of how it should
yeah,
be when you land in Vancouver, and you kind of let life like it was serendipitous. Like
you just
you had a
be.
friend who had
Yeah,
like it all just when you let go, it's almost like when you let go of this like structured idea and plan and hold on to things and hold on to how you want your life to look like. When you let that go, life is like
yeah,
whoosh, gives you all these things.
yeah,
I feel like, and I wanted to just like when you were saying about how you had that car crash,
yeah,
um, remember how I was talking about how like life gives you like a whisper and then it says like shouts a little louder and then it bangs on the door and then it gives you an illness or a car crash, right? Like maybe
yeah,
that's just it. And it's like now I feel like I'm better to be able to hear that voice quickly. It's quick. Before it's like the voice would be there and I'd be like, okay, I'll call a friend and okay, go out for drinks, And that's what most
yeah,
people do. We're busy, busy, busy. And that's what this life has become is that like you just keep making yourself busy. And when you think when you're busy, you're useful, and like this is now showing
yeah,
people like, stop
yeah,
with the go, go, go and look inside, figure out what's
yeah,
going on inside instead of just like keeping your mind busy and
yeah.
and to listen to what's
And
happening inside.
yeah, and basically, yeah, I feel like what we're trying to break this down into is that when it gets to this point, it basically manifests itself into a physical experience, like beyond a whisper, into a person literally looking at you and saying, "What are you doing?" And physically giving your whole body and mind a shake,
Hmm.
And that's what it felt like for me. It was just like that moment of like, "What are you doing, man?
Yeah.
This is what you want to do, and this is like that would have been it." That would have been it. And that's all you did? And that's the way I looked at it. It was like that would have been the end. And that's like I made the impact I felt on the people I was around, but like not even close to what I could have done. And that's what scared me most was that I could have done not with more time, but with the time that if that was it, with the time I had, there's so much more I could have done.
Mhm.
And that scared the shit out of me. And from then on, yeah, it
And does
was
that
this.
motivate you now to not procrastinate and to like use, do things that you really wanted to do with your time as opposed to, I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely. And I mean, it doesn't mean that these things don't still happen. Um, and I still like hold myself accountable and can feel myself like maybe getting down on myself. But I also am coming to understand more that like you can't just be 150 miles an hour either. I can't just be super productive Dylan all day long. Like I also know how my mind works, how my focus works, and I have to engage myself differently to get in certain mind spaces. I know that I'm an extrovert and that doesn't mean that I just lose attention quick, but it just means that I like to socialize. I live with roommates. I've
Mhm,
really got to take the time, know my times, engage myself in a way in activities and certain things that will kind of get me to that space.
mhm,
And now I can use the same amount of time I would try to be productive to just be productive and be okay with if I'm productive for half an hour rather than be like, I
mhm,
have to sit down and do 2 hours. It's just like I sit down, I'm productive. When I start to lose focus or I'm not doing it with the same oomph or the same energy that I know I
mhm.
am given, then it's like, okay, step away. Go
Right,
go go eat something, come back. Go
right.
take a walk, go take a walk. Go, maybe just change up the activity. If I'm reading, maybe go write, you know? And it's as simple as that. It really is. It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination. It's just like it's simple stuff that it
Do you
really I
feel like
feel came down to.
do you feel like now if you were to, um, you know, God forbid something happens and it's your time, like you find out like you've got a week left or something, would you feel regret that you didn't do what you needed to do? Or do you feel like, no, okay, I'm living the kind of life I want to be living and hey, if it's my time to go, then
I feel like if that time were now, the regret, because there would be one, and it would be that with everything, that's gone on the last couple of months that I didn't get home and like see my family. Because like to not see like my nieces and nephews before all that went down when I know like, like this kind of I could have been home before we all got stuck inside and stuff, possibly, made my way home. But like the only regret would be that like I wouldn't get to be with my family for that little extra bit and that I spent this last year for me, But I do believe
yeah.
that if it were to end now, that I was going in the right direction to make the type of impact that I plan to make. Yeah.
And I find that really like interesting. It seems like it's like what a lot of people would say in terms of like, if you were to die now, what, regrets or whatnot. It's kind of like that book Tuesdays with Maury. Have you read that book?
No, I haven't.
Oh, oh my God. It's like that's like like a lifetime, like everyone must read Tuesdays with Maury. Um,
Alright.
man,
Yo,
this
I'll make sure I get your books that you recommended linked in the
yeah.
description in case anyone wants to read them, and that way I can actually remember to read them myself.
But anyway, long story short, he talks about this the man that's dying. Says in the end, you don't think about those random people that you've met. It's like it's about good, solid relationships. And that's usually like family relationships. And it's like we should remember that on our day-to-day life when we're busy, 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 and I don't have time for this, and go, go, go. At the end of the day, the people that really cared about you are like, maybe five people instead of all those people that you were trying to dress a certain way to impress people and buy certain things so you look good in this society. And it's like, end of the day at your funeral, it's going to be, the ones that really remember you and the ones that are really going to be missing you are what people you can count on your hands, and that's it. And so many times we live like our life with like, I've done it too, especially when you're young, you want to be popular, you want to be this, and you want to impress this person. And it's like, the person that loves you most unconditionally is probably your mom, who accepts you with zits and with everything, with all your
Yeah,
flaws. And it's like it's the one person that will is your biggest fan, and it's like, but we're trying to
absolutely.
impress everyone else when no one else really cares or it doesn't really matter.
No, I totally. Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, okay, so I guess I want to take what you just said, but everything you said, and what would you rope if you could take this conversation and kind of rope it into a message um, for someone? Because I definitely feel, if there's even one person out here who feels like they relate to any of the struggles of like the fire you felt like you went through and the wall that was in front of you, what's maybe just one message you'd give to someone if they're listening and relate to the fire that you felt you were in? Um,
um I'd probably say just trust life. Trust life. Even though it looks fearful, trust the unknown of life.
I like that. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, we were gonna do the little flash five we talked about, Puja. Um, I feel like we talked about a lot of them. We've also, crazy enough, it's been almost the hour mark now.
Wow, okay, we should
That's no doubt, eh? I also
have her on for
So, due to some technical difficulties that we've encountered in releasing the first episode of The Curiosity Curve, we have lost the last minute of footage and audio for the podcast. In this minute, I thanked Puja for being the first guest on the podcast and also was able to get social media, or if you would like to reach or get a hold of Puja, ways to do so, which I will link down below in whichever service you're listening or watching this from currently. Thank you for watching the first episode of The Curiosity Curve. Join us next week for episode 2, where T-Bomb will be joining us. Have a great day, guys. Stay curious and raise that curve.